My LDL is just over 200. LPA is high, statin or no statin. Okay, so LDL, bad cholesterol, is over 200. Let's just put that first into context. So what should LDL be? Most cardiologists would say everyone's LDL or bad cholesterol should fall under 130. As you accumulate risk factors, so that might be high blood pressure, or history of smoking, a family history of heart disease, closer to 100 would be better. Once you have documented coronary or vascular disease, right? So those people that have had the heart attack, the stroke, bypass surgery, stent, a very abnormal coronary calcium score, for example, closer to 70 would be ideal. And then there's even data to suggest that under 50 is additionally protective. Okay? To put this in perspective, when we are born, our LDL is somewhere between 35 and 55. Okay, so very, very low. We don't need a lot of LDL for cell growth and cell maintenance. And the LDL in those populations where people experience exceptional healthy longevity, those blue zones, their average LDL is around 90. So just to give you some benchmarks of kind of where LDL should be. Just over 200. Remember, if you were here earlier, you may have heard me talking about familial hypercholesterolemia, which is that LDL of 190 or above. Also talked about the fact that some people, even with LDLs in that range, can respond to a food-based intervention, sometimes profoundly. So trying a food-based intervention, such as Step 1 foods, I think makes sense if this is, your first diagnosis and you're just sort of dealing with this and, okay, should I go on a statin or not? But be scientific about it, right? Make sure that you see a significant reduction in LDL and talk to your doctor about whether it makes sense for you to continue on with the food or whether you should be on a statin drug, because people with genetically driven, very high LDL levels do benefit from being on a statin medications, but only if they fail a dietary intervention. Lipoprotein A, I need to say a few words about that. So lipoprotein A is an extra protein that floats around in the bloodstream. It's not something we measure as part of a standard cholesterol profile. It's actually a separate test. It needs to be specifically requested. And it's actually amazing that we don't test for this more often. I do this a lot in my own practice, but about 25% of people have an elevated lipoprotein A. Well, so what? Well, it turns out lipoprotein A is this little protein that attaches itself to LDL, the bad cholesterol, and makes it much more toxic. So people with elevated lipoprotein A levels are at higher risk of developing earlier and more aggressive atherosclerosis. But I've also seen people with high lipoprotein A levels who never have a problem, and people who have perfectly normal lipoprotein A levels and have more aggressive atherosclerotic disease. So it's not a given. It's a risk factor, but you have to look at that, in the context of your family history of heart disease and whether this is an important risk factor for you. One of the things I would say, if you've never had this done, it's a blood test. You could request to have it done with your next routine cholesterol check, and that it might make a difference in terms of your management plan.